So today we're going to talk about function brainstorming. So something you might have been wondering, but I hope I've addressed this at this point, but something you might have been wondering is, we've gotten so far into this process, we've done all of these things, but we still haven't done any actual brainstorming. And there's a reason that we do this so late. And I've kind of discussed it, but just as a reminder, doing this way really helps us focus on the problem. It helps us not get distracted by shiny solutions, and it's also going to help us not get distracted by solutions that already exist. It's going to let us come up with new and different ones rather than getting stuck on what we've already seen. So the goal of this is to make our design space as wide open as possible, while still making sure that we're focusing on the correct problem. Now I found this quote that I really liked about the difference between functions-based brainstorming and traditional brainstorming. So, we know what traditional brainstorming is, right? You get in a group, everyone thinks of a bunch of different ideas, you generate a bunch of different things, but if, you're asking the question, how do we make a better chair? Everyone is going to suggest chair improvements, which makes sense. But the goal of functions-based brainstorming is, instead of focusing on the chair, you're focusing, okay, what does the chair actually do? The chair supports weight. So then you come up with different ways to support weight, and you might come up with something like a swing. And you can see that still answers the question, but it really gets rid of that kind of initial solution that you might have gotten stuck on otherwise. So some things to remember: quantity counts. We want tons of ideas. Be positive, so don't criticize or judge, and this ties in closely with welcoming out-of-the-box ideas. Even if an idea is impossible or ridiculous, still write it down and don't judge it, because we want to piggyback and combine ideas, and sometimes an impossible or ridiculous idea can lead to a really creative idea that actually works. So let's pick up where we left off last time. So here we have our functions. We have pick up dirt off the floor, move around a room, capture dirt, and dispose of dirt. Okay, so on a new page, let's start with move around. So this is a nice kind of easy one. So let's think about how can we move around a room? So we can start with obvious things like wheels. And under that we can have things like, okay, maybe we want 2 wheels, maybe we want 4 wheels. So we can have different numbers of wheels. We can also think about treads, so tank treads. Let's see. What about, instead of wheels, we could have a series of balls underneath that are driven, so that way it can move in any direction. Right, so that's a little bit more non-traditional. We can have something that we can hover. That way it won't get caught on things. And we could maybe think of different ways to hover. So maybe it's like a quadcopter kind of setup. So we've got 4 turbines. Or maybe another way to hover is you have maglev kind of things. Let's see, what are other ways we could move around? I think this is a pretty good list, right? We've got a couple of different ideas. Some traditional ones, right? It's just got some wheels. Also on wheels we can add just a caster kind of wheel, so a wheel that'll just kind of roll without being powered. Depending on the number of wheels, that could be useful. Treads, balls that move in any direction, right? So you have an interesting drive system there. We could be hovering, and we've got all of these different ideas. And some of them, maglev, in the context of our problem, might not make the most sense, but we're going to leave it there anyway. Now, as I'm going through this, I'm thinking, okay, well, this is moving around a room, but we haven't talked about, like, steering it all, right? Oh, wrong page. Here we go. So, pick up dirt, move around a room. So really, move around a room could actually be kind of put into two different categories. So we have, like, a drive system and a steering system. So as you go through this process of brainstorming, you might, you have a drive system and a steering system. As you go through this process, you might find that you need to add some more functions. So it needs to steer around the room in addition to move around the room. So maybe we want to think about, like, steering systems or guidance systems. It depends on if this is moving on its own, right? So we said it was not human powered, but again, we don't want to get wrapped up in our objectives and constraints yet. That is the next step. Once we have done all of our brainstorming, then we're going to move in to evaluating those and taking out the ideas that maybe won't work given our objectives and constraints. But for now, we're going to stay with functions. We're really just going to be focusing on our functions. Let's see, let's try another one. We can do pick up dirt. So obviously we can think of our, like, traditional option where we've got like a roller with bristles and suction. That was more like kind of a vacuum option. And then we could also, let's see, we could do just like a broom kind of thing, right? So instead of doing like a roller that's like spinning, you could have something like a swinging broom. It could have like a tiny claw that could like reach down and pick up individual like specks of dirt. I'm trying to think. Picking up dirt's a little bit tricky. I mean, it could just be like plain suction, right? So no spinning things, no moving parts, just kind of like a vacuum sucking things up. Yeah, I mean, this seems like a pretty good start. Now, as I went through picking up dirt, I kind of thought about, well, I was thinking kind of vacuum, and I realized that here I was kind of getting a little bit sucked into, jokes, sucked into thinking like a Roomba kind of thing. And so, in my head, I was picturing like this Roomba, and it has like the wheels and like all of this stuff and kind of a round thing rolling around the floor. But like there are other ways that this can look, right? So we might still have those four wheels, but maybe we do just like have a swinging broom. So maybe our design ends up looking like we've got like a little thing, a little support thing, and it's like holding up, a broom that is just holding up a broom that's just kind of like swinging back and forth and into a dustpan. So, that is the beauty of this method. Even though I was feeling a little bit stuck on kind of one idea and thinking about like a Roomba kind of thing, wheels and treads and balls and hover, like these things could be applied to any system that I eventually come up with. I'm also going to add a dustpan here. And this is just a start, right? Like I'm taking like 5 minutes to kind of go through this to show you some options. But as you go through, take a little bit more time, go back and forth, start with pick up dirt, and then be like, oh, like as you're thinking about this, maybe you think of another idea for how to move around. And you hopefully have lots of different functions to go through. And like I said, you might end up adding some. So right now, we've got the steering system. So like, what does that look like? Is this driving on its own? It's not human powered, but maybe it's human controlled. Okay, so these are all things that you want to be thinking. You might clarify objectives, clarify constraints, add more functions as you go through this process. You should always be evaluating. It's not bad or wrong to go back and change things as you do this. So take your time, let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.